Why do you need to increase your financial literacy? Because any successful retirement plan is going to require some level of investing. And many people are afraid of investing because they don't understand it. This is especially true for minority households who tend to be very conservative in investment choices. But it is unlikely you will achieve your retirement and saving goals unless you can consistently generate at least 7%. And that's just not going to happen with your money in savings accounts, CDs, or money markets. Hello again. Welcome to The Ruthless Truth. I am your host, Truth Davis. In this forum, I share opinions, thoughts, truths on a wide variety of topics based on what I consider to be a unique life experience. I'm an inner city kid who ascended to the C-suite of a Fortune 100 company, so I've seen some things. And you can read the details in the notes or the bio. My intent is to share stories and experiences and hopefully provide career and life lessons that will assist you on your journey. Please follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5, subscribe to the YouTube channel Ruthless Truth, and there's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. General format, I'll share some initial commentary or just thoughts on current events. Then I'll have a deeper discussion on one topic, which will be today's truth. And then I'd like to end on an American history fun fact. Okay, first up, did you see the recent Instagram post where a mother surprised her daughter with a new car as a high school graduation gift? What a great gift. I was sure the daughter would be excited and grateful. But was she? No. The daughter's response was, and I quote, "I was expecting to get a Benz or a BMW. I appreciate you, Mom, but it's just not my style. You drive a G-Wagon, so me driving a basic Honda is just weird." What? That was her response? What an ungrateful, spoiled little brat. Fortunately, her mom responded by reminding her that, hey, she's a grown woman who had worked for what she had and that the child had no appreciation for her comfortable life. But how did it even get to this? I place some of the blame on the parents who allowed this sense of entitlement to develop for 18 years. This mentality should have been nipped in the bud years before we got to the end of high school. Look, I know it's hard to raise children of privilege. You want your children to be happy, and you can afford to give them just about anything they want. But parents need to set boundaries and learn to say no. How will children ever appreciate work ethic if they never experience delayed gratification? So, I love the response from the mom. She needs to reflect on her own behavior and ask herself what she did or didn't do along the way for her child to even think like this. Okay, next topic. You've probably heard that in celebration of his 80th birthday, the president is hosting a UFC fight on the lawn of the White House. But what you may have missed is just the day before announcing this big UFC event, he made a large purchase of stock in the TKO company. And who is TKO, you may ask? They are the parent company of UFC. So he first purchased the stock, then promoted the company to drive up the value of his stock purchase. But you know what? This is nothing new. Last month, the president disclosed that his trust is actively trading individual stocks, which is unprecedented for a sitting U.S. president in the modern era. The arrangement is raising new questions about whether the president's actions, policies, or public statements could directly benefit his personal financial holdings. Really? That's a question? And the disclosure reveals the president has made thousands of stock transactions with companies directly impacted by his policies, including Dell, Amazon, Nvidia, and more. And all of his 10 best buys were tech company stocks boosted by the unregulated AI boom Trump has made a centerpiece of his economic policy. Look, I'm as pure a capitalist as they come, and I would never begrudge people making money legally. And while U.S. law bans federal employees from holding financial assets that could be impacted by their policy work, there is a carve-out for the president. So he's not doing anything illegal, but it is a bad look. You know, as voters, we send people to Washington to work for us, not enrich themselves. Again, I don't mind members of Congress earning fees for speaking, but this should be infrequent. And I will acknowledge that members of Congress and Senate have not received a salary increase in 18 years. So it's understandable that they look for supplemental income. But first and foremost, I want Congress focused on policies that improve the lives of American citizens. I'd like to see new policy and procedures that ensure the majority of their time and thinking is on doing their job. Specifically, I propose the following: a ban on stock trades while in office. Second, maintain the current annual cap on the amount that can be earned outside of base salary. And this includes speaking fees, campaign contributions, PAC money. Currently, this cap is $30,000 a year. However, book royalties are excluded, and I'm fine with that. And thirdly, whenever there is a government shutdown, members of Congress do not get paid until the government reopens. Okay? I think that's reasonable. Regardless of party, I think we all just want them to focus on doing their jobs. Okay, let's get to today's truth. Today's truth. I want to speak to Generation X, often referred to as the forgotten generation, because they're sandwiched between the baby boomers and the millennials, who receive far more coverage and attention. People in this generation were born between 1965 and 1980, so their age range is 46 to 61. Hey, you guys have had it rough. I mean, among many things, this was the first generation who relied on 401ks rather than pensions to save for retirement. Well, in my opinion, you were sold a bill of goods on that and are now facing a retirement crisis. So in today's truth, I want to discuss some of the challenges facing Generation X and offer some potential solutions and courses of action for you to manage through. Okay, let's first level set on the overall Gen X situation. You know, a research paper was recently issued by Alliance's Retirement Income Institute. The paper found that this so-called sandwich generation is the most likely to be supporting both children and aging parents at the same time. They've experienced 8 recessions over their lifetimes and witnessed soaring education, healthcare, and housing costs. Many must now contend with large mortgage and car payments along with student loan debt, while also balancing greater financial responsibilities. And I already mentioned the retirement crisis. Only 14% of Gen X workers have a traditional pension, compared with 56% of boomers. And uncertainty looms about the future of Social Security and whether the fund will be depleted over the next 10 years. Now, personally, I don't think that'll happen because no politician wants to try to get reelected after killing or depleting Social Security. Older people vote. So, it's undeniable that Gen Xers are in a tough spot. So what can they do about it? Well, the AARP recently published an article entitled 9 Steps Gen Xers Should Take to Prepare for Retirement. And it contains useful information. Now, I'm not going to address all 9 steps, but there are a few recommendations I agree with and I will address here. Most of these points have been made at one time or another in previous episodes of The Ruthless Truth. Okay, number 1, get your debt under control. Debt is a financial killer when it comes to retirement planning. Now, I recognize not all debt is created equal. Mortgage, student loans, these are reasonable and understandable, but they still need to be managed. No, I'm mostly talking about credit card debt, followed closely by auto loans. Look, we all want to enjoy life. We want to travel, eat out, have nice things. But if you can only pay for this by using credit cards, then you can't afford your lifestyle. You need to cut back and or find more affordable options. This leads to point 2. Quantify your monthly expenses. Now, most people don't really know how much they spend every month. As a financial advisor, this is one of the first topics I cover with new clients. And whenever I ask people, so, how much do you think you spend a month? The number they give is always understated. Well, don't guess. Write it down. And I'm talking about the expenses you will have every month that you're breathing, such as housing, insurance, food, gas, taxes, and personal care. Then write down the expenses that aren't necessarily required, but you will likely spend, like entertainment, food delivery, and occasional shopping. If your take-home pay doesn't cover these expenses, you're going deeper in the hole every month. You need to make some changes. Okay? Another key action for Gen Xers looking to improve their financial situation, learn to say no. And you may be thinking, to who? Who do I need to say no to? Well, you need to say it to anyone asking you to do something or asking for something that will cost you money you don't have. I remember an exchange between my sons when they were teenagers. My younger son seemed to always have more money than his brother, despite them receiving equal allowance. Now, my older one said, "Dad, I think he's selling rocks." I said, "Come on, man, it's ridiculous." But he's like, "Well, how did he always has money?" And I told him, "He's just more frugal than you." And one time, he asked his younger brother for some money, and I'll never, ever forget his response. "I have no money for you." And that's my point. Hold on to your money. Resist the request for personal loans. In episode 40 of The Ruthless Truth, I said, don't you dare go broke trying to help out family and friends. And these are truly words to live by. Don't loan money that you need repaid. Do not borrow from your retirement to pay for college education for your kids. Don't accept invitations to destination weddings or events if it's not within your budget. And even if you are more financially comfortable than peers and family, don't acquiesce to emotional blackmail. Don't fall for the, "Come on, man, you got it." That's right, and I'm keeping it. My final point to Gen X is you need a retirement and savings plan. Now, obviously, I'm biased in recommending you meet with a financial advisor, but please recognize few things happen in life without a plan, whether that's career, relationships, weight loss, or building wealth. But even if you choose not to work with an advisor, which is the choice most Americans make, You can still self-educate. There are many free resources available to you. I mean, just about every major financial services company, such as Fidelity, Schwab, JP Morgan, Vanguard, just to name a few, has financial educational content on their website. Additionally, there are third-party sites like NerdWallet and Investopedia. And why do you need to increase your financial literacy? Because any successful retirement plan is going to require some level of investing. And many people are afraid of investing because they don't understand it. This is especially true for minority households who tend to be very conservative in investment choices. But it is unlikely you will achieve your retirement and saving goals unless you can consistently generate at least 7%. And that's just not going to happen with your money in savings accounts, CDs, or money markets, okay? But even before you finalize your plan, here are some things you can do immediately. 1, max out your contributions to your employer-sponsored retirement plan, at least to the point where your employer is matching. 2nd, if you are 50 or older, take advantage of catch-up provisions offered by most plans, allowing you to save at even higher levels. 3rd, build an emergency cash fund. You should have at least 6 months, ideally 12 months, of living expenses in a liquid, readily accessible account like a savings or money market account. And while now is not a good time, when mortgage rates eventually fall, look to refinance if you currently have a high mortgage rate. So, to summarize, as a Gen Xer, you were dealt a lousy hand. It seems the baby boomers and millennials receive far more consideration and attention, leaving you as the forgotten generation. But by all accounts, you are the least prepared for retirement. But not all hope is lost. You still have time to make choices and take action to improve your prospects for the future. Reduce your debt by living within your means and implementing a savings and investment plan. And learn to say no to anyone asking you to do something or asking for something that will cost you money you don't have. And finally, improve your financial literacy via a financial advisor or self-education. The more informed you are, the better decisions you will make. Okay, let's get to today's American History Fun Fact. Today's American History Fun Fact. The story I'm about to tell you is fascinating. I first heard it from an episode of the TV series entitled A Crime to Remember, which does reenactments of notorious U.S. crimes. And the reason I haven't previously shared this story is there's really nothing, quote, fun about the facts of this event. But it is historic and compelling, so taking a bit of liberty with the fun fact aspect of this section, here we go. On November 1st, 1955, United Airlines Flight 629 departed Denver, Colorado, headed to Portland, Oregon. And about 10 minutes after takeoff, the aircraft exploded, killing everyone on board, which consisted of 39 passengers and 5 crew members. Given the magnitude of the in-air explosion, there was early speculation that something other than a mechanical problem or pilot error was responsible for the crash. Investigators examined every piece of recovered wreckage, including luggage and packages, but no possible cause of an explosion due to malfunction of any part of the plane was located by the examiners. And then on November 7th, 1955, the Chief of Investigations of the Civil Aeronautics Board officially stated that there were indications of sabotage. They later determined that a bomb had been checked in the luggage of one of the passengers. Additionally, the FBI conducted extensive background checks on every passenger and crew member. They hoped to identify any passengers who may have had someone with a motive to kill them. The immediate efforts were made to determine the identity of passengers of which large amounts of trip insurance had been obtained. And that revealed there were about 6 passengers who had insurance on them. And the range of that insurance was from a high of $62,500 to $12,000. Okay. Now, at that time, airports had kiosks where passengers could purchase flight accident life insurance. But because of a holiday weekend, they couldn't do a complete check of all the companies at first, okay? Because some of the policies were located. But they later did locate one where there was 3 policies on one passenger, and that was on the life of Daisy E. King. Okay, quick background on Daisy King. She was born in 1902 in Colorado. Her first marriage was to Tom Gallagher, to whom a daughter, Nancy, was born in 1923. That marriage ended in divorce in 1929. That same year, she married William Graham, and in 1932, they had a son, John Gilbert Graham. Now, known as Jack, he was born during the height of the Great Depression. And in 1937, his father died from pneumonia, causing Daisy to send the 5-year-old Jack to an orphanage due to their poverty. Now, in 1941, Daisy was married for the 3rd time to Earl King, who died shortly after their marriage. Now, using her inheritance from King's death, Daisy became a successful businesswoman. But despite her newfound wealth, Daisy did not collect or retrieve 9-year-old Jack from the orphanage. She left him there for the entirety of his childhood. Now, mother and son remained estranged until 1954, when Graham was 22 years old, and Daisy King was still running a successful restaurant. But even after their reunion, King and Graham continued to have a poor relationship and often argued. Okay, back to the plane investigation. So during a thorough search of the home of Jack Graham on November 13th, 1955, a duplicate travel insurance policy on the life of his mother, Mrs. King, was found in the amount of $37,500 and found in a small cedar chest in the bedroom of his home. Now, the original of this policy was designated beneficiary Jack Graham, was later located and made available by the insurance company. So, based on this new evidence, agents deepened their investigation of Jack Graham and subsequently searched Graham's house and automobile. In the garage, they found wire and other bomb-making parts that were identical to those found in the wreckage. They also found another $37,500 policy, which is equivalent to $451,000 today, in life insurance policies. However, King had not signed either of these policies or those purchased at the airport, rendering them worthless. Graham told FBI agents that his mother had packed her own suitcase. However, Jack's wife Gloria revealed that Graham had wrapped a present for his mother on the morning of her flight. And faced with the mounting evidence and discrepancies in his story, on November 13th, 1955, just 12 days after the crash, Jack Graham confessed to having placed the bomb in his mother's suitcase. Apparently, Jack was still bitter from his mother abandoning him as a child, and over time, that bitterness had grown to hate. Now, his mother generally liked to arrive at the airport early, but Jack had built a bomb composed of dynamite that had like a 55-minute timer on it. So, he was supposed to drive his mother to the airport, but he had made excuses and delays that morning, so they arrived with little time to make the flight. And then he activated the timer just before removing his mother's suitcase from the car. So, after hearing the confessions, authorities were ready to move forward, but were shocked to discover there was no federal statute on the books at the time that made it a crime to blow up an aircraft. Blowing up a domestic aircraft was not a crime. The possibility of this happening had just never previously been considered. So prosecutors had to get creative in finding a way to charge him. Therefore, on the day after Graham's confession, the district attorney moved swiftly to prosecute him via the simplest possible route: premeditated murder committed against a single victim, his mother, Daisy E. King. Initially, Jack Graham considered an insanity defense, and the doctors were curious as to his feelings about the crime. And they were told by him that he, quote, realized there are about 50 or 60 people on the flight, but the number of people to be killed, that didn't make any difference to me. It could have been 1,000. You know, when their time comes, there's nothing they can do about it, end quote. And then Graham said it was a great relief to tell the doctors about it because he had been quite conscience-stricken. Doctors were struck at his ability to stand coolly at the boarding gate and watch all the passengers board, knowing they would all be dead in minutes by his hand. Eventually, the insanity plea was abandoned and he was convicted of the murder of his mother. And after a few short delays, Jack Graham was executed in the Colorado State Penitentiary gas chamber on January 11th, 1957, at the age of 24, just 14 months after the day of the crime. So, what's the historical legacy of this case? Well, first, on July 14th, 1956, President Dwight Eisenhower signed a bill into law which made the intentional bombing of a commercial airline illegal. Second, Graham's trial led to Colorado becoming the first state to officially sanction the broadcast of criminal trials on television. And finally, this case confirms that the key to great detective work is not technology, but investigators who thoroughly review the evidence, identify promising leads, and know how to question witnesses and interrogate suspects. This case was solved in just 12 days. Okay, that's all I have for you today on The Ruthless Truth. Thank you so much for listening. Again, follow me on Instagram at TruthDavis5. Subscribe to the YouTube channel, Ruthless Truth. There's also a Facebook page, Ruthless Truth. And I invite you to review past episodes. There's a wide variety of topics covered, and I'm sure you'll find something of interest to you. Thanks again, and I will talk to all of you soon.